Cash-a-maniacs.
Geo Gearheads.
Welcome back to the Geo Gearheads. This is episode 445, and tonight we're going to be talking about getting good coordinates for the third time. I'm Daryl W4, back as usual with Chris of the Northwest.
Daryl, it's good to see you. I think I misread that title. I thought we were having an upcoming trip to Vegas, and it was about getting good cards.
No. It's all online now. There's no trips anywhere.
I'm totally unprepared for this episode now.
Oh, well, that's okay. So am I.
Okay. But
so
if you slip a 20 to the dealer, he's going to help you out. That's all I know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Help you out the door?
Probably.
Okay. All right. Since we're so unprepared, why don't we actually start with some news? Think that's a good idea?
I would love to. Do you know what happened this week on the geocaching website?
I do.
Oh, look you've got a picture.
Well, no, I actually have the live web page.
Oh, okay. There you go. We have a new cache owner dashboard. Now, this happens to be the dashboard for a certain Daryl W4.
I thought it was mine, not a certain one.
Oh.
Because I'm very uncertain.
Daryl, I really like the layout of this.
I do.
Give you the 4 boxes across the top telling you, if you need maintenance or now you have to hold it still so I look. What are the other ones? I can't quite.
So we have the needs maintenance, the disabled waiting to be published, and the reviewer note published. So like if a reviewer hides it, oh, you know what? I think that's disabled but published. So yeah, both of those are like, ones where the reviewers have gone in and taken action on your caches.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final one is the unpublished reviewer note. So a new hide that needs attention.
Right.
And you've got your logs down here.
With photos. With photos.
Yes.
I really like that.
Yeah. And it's a nice looking layout. In general, it gives you a good idea just at a glance of what's going on. I haven't had a whole lot of time to spend with it. It is responsive. So when you start shrinking it down, you lose some of that nice columnar formatting, and you can get down all the way to just, one thing, one box, and just one big long column.
Good for a smartphone or tablet or PC with a huge screen.
Yeah. So my impression of playing with this a little bit is on a smartphone, it doesn't do so well. And that's my feeling. Yeah. But because you've got so much scrolling that you're doing, you're not getting some of that hide information right at the top. You're just getting the 4 boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the logs. It's just not as easy to use as it is on the big screen.
Well, it gives you that dashboard layout look that you can just scan quickly through and see, oh, look, these 4 boxes, there's nothing in here that needs my attention. I'm good to go.
Yeah. It's certainly better than what we've had before, but it really does work best on a larger device.
GSM times 2 says hit the published caches button. Lots of good stuff in there.
Published caches, published hides, I guess. You know what? I didn't realize I had this many active caches.
Well, and he also says GSM times 2 says, wow, no maintenance or disabled caches. Good for you. And GSM times 2, it's actually pretty easy when you own under 600 caches.
Well, and we did go out and do cache maintenance not long ago on a couple of our caches, but I don't have a whole lot of caches anymore. And most of that I attribute to not having the space for caches around here. It's very hard to put out new caches when every time you do it, it's got some kind of puzzle final or whatever nearby that you can't actually do it.
Yeah.
So, grrr.
Well, that's what your friendly reviewers are for.
Yeah, but the last time I spent a whole bunch of time placing caches, which granted was years ago, it took me, and the worst part is I was making puzzles. So, yeah, you had to get everything in line and then go out to find out that you have to redo it. But over half of them were too close to other caches, and I had to move them, several thousand feet away. Some of them, I think I had to move a couple miles actually, and redo the entire puzzle around
The
it.
puzzle will be fine there. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I think I've solved some of those puzzles. Well, it's not actually here. Here, you've solved the puzzle. Here are the real coordinates.
There are some of those tools out there where you can actually solve for a word or something, and then enter that into the checker to get the final. That to me is a much easier way to do this kind of thing, because then you don't have to worry about it, but it's so much extra work.
Yes and no. I mean, because again, it's all about me, Daryl. I don't know.
Of course. Well, geocaching revolves around you.
Thank you.
Or at least in the Northwest, it does.
And
that's what, half the world?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so used to looking for coordinates to come out with of puzzles that, if I have to come out with a word or something, my brain no longer thinks that way.
Yeah, this is true. Very true.
And it's all about me.
Yep.
So thank you. Thank you for having geocaching just for me.
You're very welcome. And we all are here to just...
I think somebody disagrees.
What's that?
My phone just buzzed. I think somebody disagrees.
Oh, probably. Though no one in our chat seems to disagree. Oh, interesting. GSM times 2 says that the published hides page has lots of columns and they're sortable. So I probably just don't have enough going on with my caches to enable that, is my guess.
Well, now I have to go look. You can find it right from your profile page. It's a quick and easy button there.
Wow, it's amazing how they do that. It's almost like if they create something, they want you to be able to use it.
See, Daryl, you have more hides than I do. I don't see any options here other than a map.
So yeah, it's probably quantity of hides and or condition of the hides. So if maybe you get some of those columns showing up after you have needs maintenance log or something like that. But yeah, I like it. It's a nice improvement. And I look to see what they change on that in the future, because I would assume this is not the final version that's going to be with us for years. They'll probably make some more changes before they move on to another project. Why don't we move? Oop, go ahead.
You need to get published caches on the left-hand column. The top ones are just about nasty grams. So I hit published caches there on the left-hand side. And mine, it pulls them up, but I don't have a whole lot of columns or information about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can't get the left column in some of the narrower screens. So you end up having, I think it is down at the bottom somehow, but I haven't scrolled down that far to make sure that that's accurate. So check it out, and we'll talk about it in a few weeks again, most likely, when we have our next randomized show.
Oh, well, can I ask one more thing, or should we just say
Sure, go ahead.
So I clicked on that, and I looked at the caches, my hides, and over on the right side is the 3 dots, the ellipse, and I clicked on it, and there's, cache owner tools like edit, upload images, owner maintenance, write a note, update coordinates, disable or archive. Was that standard in cache listings? I never look at my own caches in cache.
No,
listings.
you had to go into the actual cache page, from what I recall.
That
And
makes it quite nice.
that said, I haven't looked at a listing of my own caches except in the short version in the stats page.
Mm-hmm.
So, in years. So it could have been there and I just missed it. But I think that's all new. I think that's all part of the initiative to bring the site up to like a current UI, which I'm sure is still going to take them a while, but they are getting so much better.
They really are. I mean, they're putting a lot of effort into the UI, into the user experience.
Yeah, and they're investing a lot of resources into it, more than what I originally expected they had to do. Their entire product line
Mm-hmm.
is going into just website, from what I'm hearing. Yeah, they've got quite the dev team going out there now.
Or from home.
Well, it's out that way.
It's out there.
Although I do think they have some of the developers in like other countries and stuff too now.
I thought at least the ones who help translate.
Well, those are mostly volunteers, aren't they not?
I think they are, maybe.
Yeah, because they have the volunteer reviewers and that kind of stuff out there. They have, out in their countries. And then they have oh shoot.
I know.
Why can I not remember the name? Their version of customer service guys in Seattle. They can take a look at a lot of that too. So they don't actually do most of the translation, as I understand. They send a lot of that out, but a lot of it is actually, I don't think they send any of it out anymore. I think they do the major ones themselves. Then they have some that they're doing with the reviewers. So the major stuff gets done internally, as I recall. So like I think German, French, and Spanish, and of course English, are done internally. Then I believe most of the others are done with some volunteer reviewers. And actually, I think they said they are doing some of that as paid translations. So it probably depends on what the project is.
In case you were interested in seeing one with a few more caches on it, kind of looks like that. This one is GSM times 2. Oh, well, he went to the published hides. That's not.
Well, that's a page that we were on, because that's where he was talking about clicking through.
So,
but I'm wondering if his looks wider than what I had on my screen.
I agree.
So I'm wondering if some of that stuff you have to be really wide.
I mean, I didn't have distance placed on, finds, favorites, DNF. I didn't have any of that. I had the name and these 3 dots. Everything else was either unfilled or.
All right. So when I go as wide as this monitor will allow, which is the 1920, I get the name, distance, placed on, finds, favorites, DNFs, last found, last 3 logs, last maintenance. And then the 3 dots for the edit tools. So it is not just going wide.
So, yeah. Okay. So I have my monitors laid out in portrait style instead of landscape. So here, mine looks very different. So it looks incredibly simple with just the name and the button over here. So
okay, so you do get some additional information when you go wider.
Mm-hmm.
But at least as wide as I was going, I didn't get some of the information that he had. So yeah, I think there's a combination of things going on One being the width and the other being the condition.
Yeah, I got it all now. If I stretch it across both screens.
Oh, you have everything that he had?
Mhm.
Huh. Interesting.
I wonder how will that share. Okay, we've gotten way off track.
Hit the tab. Yeah, share the tab and it should work.
So, as I stretch it, look at that.
Yeah.
I didn't have to stretch it much, and it filled out.
Yeah, and that's getting into like what I had.
And that's all I get.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what I had. I thought he had a couple of more things on there.
Well, I'll tell you.
Or will you show me?
Oh, yeah, that's probably better. So here you go. Distance, placed on, finds, favorites, DNFs, last found, last 3 logs, last maintenance, and the ellipse.
You know, maybe that is what I had.
I zoomed in just to make it readable.
Yeah, I was thinking he had something else. But yeah, so maybe it is just the width of your monitor. Or your window, not your monitor.
And GSM times 2. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, why don't we move into the getting good chords, since that's actually what we're supposed to be talking about.
Oh, yeah.
But this is something we've talked about a couple times before, and I kind of think that this has changed a little bit
Mm-hmm.
in that it's less easy to tell people how to get good chords. And so there's a couple of fundamentals that you always should remember. And my first is always turn on your GPS, your phone, whatever, leave it running for a while. Don't turn it on when you get to the location expected to find where you are, because most GPSRs need some movement to help them really get a good fix. And that might just be trying to keep out of tree cover or whatever. But in any case, you want to be moving for a little while. You want to have the GPS and smartphone or whatever turned on. And if you're on something like a smartphone, make sure that you're in an app that is keeping the GPS hot. Because if not, you might as well just have the phone off. It's not going to get the location updates. So that's one of the big keys. Remember, you can't turn on your device and get good chords. Period.
Well, and Daryl, I think from the last time we talked about this, smartphones have gone a step farther to isolate us from working with the GPS like we used to.
They have, and that's one of the things is your mileage will vary with the smartphones now, so it's not as easy as it used to be. You know, we used to say something like, turn it on, leave the app in the foreground, and you're good. And that's still most of the time going to be the best way to do it. But we've heard some things about certain apps being shut down or throttled so that you don't get the good chords. And we also have heard that many of the apps will actually keep the GPS hot as long as the app is running. Sometimes there's actually settings for that. But with the way some of these OSs have gotten aggressive with their power management, I wouldn't count on that. So you have to really go and play with it yourself to see what it looks like.
Yeah, so definitely your mileage may vary.
Yeah, Kunibud says it's the 6 or 9 mile an hour thing, which I'm not sure exactly what he's talking about, but I'm assuming it means, keep it moving. And that's some of what we used to run into that I think has been improved. But the older GPSs for a while, like the Colorado that I had, was notoriously bad. It always wanted to be moving. So when you stopped, it actually became less accurate.
Exactly.
So yeah, you do need to certainly know your GPS. We're not going to say any of these things are absolutes for every GPS. But what we're going to talk about are some of the core things that you should try in getting your good chords. So that's my first one. Chris, did you have a different one that you want to share?
Well, we're talking about smartphones, but some people still use GPSRs. So, with that, I think it's even more important to let it sit. If you're going out to drive for a cache, use your phone to navigate to the cache, to ground zero, but leave your GPSR on and like in the windshield there on the dash, so it can get a clear view of the sky and download any updates that it may need, that all important almanac data to be able to find the satellites.
Yeah, and that is something I was going for, is make sure that the GPS is on as well. And kind of along those same lines, some of the GPSRs do have battery savers. And this is true on phones as well. If you are in a battery save mode, do not expect to get good coordinates.
Right.
Now,
if you're going to stay on roads with it.
Yeah. It's lower accuracy than what we need as cachers. And a lot of it on some of the phones will actually do the motion chip thing that I can't remember what it's called, but they'll use the motion in the motion sensors
processor
to augment the location. So they do essentially dead reckoning, which is not actually, I believe, the correct term for that, but it's okay. I know I'm here. I know I'm traveling in this direction at this speed. So I'm projecting that I'm over here, and they'll slow down the sampling.
Right.
But Nick from Cashly was saying that he did the testing and found that in iOS, the battery saver did not affect the location anymore.
But there's an option in Cashly to force it into high accuracy mode.
Right. So I think, again, this is one of your mileage may vary things. It worked for him during his testing. I don't know if that's going to continue to work. Who knows what happens with the next version of iOS or the next patch.
Right.
So this is why, these are tips that you should look at, not necessarily things that are going to be cast in stone. It's software, it changes.
That's right. So with the GPSR, with the physical GPSR that's not a phone, I think we have to expressly say that anymore, don't we, Daryl?
Yeah.
There's going to be a screen with the Garmin's. There's a screen where you can see the number of satellites, where they are in the sky, and show your location and accuracy. Let it sit there for a while, and you'll notice the accuracy go from 50 to 24 to maybe 9 or 6 feet.
Yeah, and if you do have a screen that tells you, because there were some of the GPSRs that didn't give you the satellite accuracy screen. Sometimes they were separate, sometimes they're the same, but regardless, you didn't get the stats. So if you don't have that, it doesn't really help, like most smartphones. But you can get a lot of information from that screen that will help you determine if it's a good time to do your coordinates. But GSM times 2 made the comment, it's amazing if you open your track and look at the movements when you're sitting still, like eating lunch. Yeah. And that kind of goes back to, on most GPS chips, they're built for navigation. They want to move. They don't like sitting still. So, they try to find movement, essentially, that's not there. And it can cause some problems. Not all chips are done that way. So some work better than others for this kind of stuff. Was there something else you were going to say, though? Because I think I cut you off.
Well, okay. So that we talked about GPSR for smartphone. What I like to do, and your mileage may vary, is open your geocaching app, whatever app you're using. Pull up the nearest cache and set a waypoint for where you currently are. And just like GSM times 2 said, watch how much you move around as you navigate to that waypoint, and that will let you know your accuracy. That's one of the things I do. was a couple of months ago, Daryl, that I started carrying my GPSR with me because my smartphone was so unreliable. And I think my smartphone got jealous. Yes, I'm anthropomorphizing my smartphone. And the coordinates got really good on it. And now that I'm no longer carrying the GPSR, the coordinates have gotten worse again. I mean, I go out with people and I say, okay, I know I'm within 75 feet. You know, if I start walking, it's going to say, oh, it's 50 feet back that way.
I'm trying to find an explanation for this aside from just coincidence.
Yeah.
But yeah, 'cause one of the things that, and actually, I think Sonny just mentioned this on Podcaster on last week's show. A lot of people don't understand that GPSRs do not transmit anything. They are simply receivers.
Right.
You have a few of those units that do have like a radio, an FRS radio or something like that in them. But
or
for the most,
radio for traffic.
yeah,
But
yeah,
nothing's going to actually talk back.
Well, the FM radios don't talk back, but I'm thinking the FRS and the GMRS, the walkie talkies,
right?
They'll have the radio to do two-way, and some of the oh shoot, it just escaped me because GSM times 2 put a comment in about the next thing I wanted to talk about. The Iridium satellite radios, so things like the InReach. But aside from those, they shouldn't be transmitting anything. Or you know what? We now have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi as well, so that could cause potential issues, especially with the smartphones. Right. We've talked about the trouble that I have. Oh, hey, you know what? Jim Stark just came up with a good one. Some of them have ANT Plus, which is a two-way communication technology, two-way wireless. So there you go. Actually, Coon and Bud
that one
said something about someone asked me, how do you do that? Are they magnetic? No, but the magnets will screw up GPS receivers a lot of the time because of the compass.
Yeah. So my previous smartphone, I used a magnetic mount in the car, and I know that screwed up my, it took a while for my GPS to kind of settle down from that after I'd pull it out of the car. And I accounted for the shaking in the self-stabilizing camera.
Oh,
I believe it, the magnet pulled the camera, the self-stabilizing camera, off of center, and then it,
I could see that. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I am now very anti-magnetic phone holders.
Yeah. No, that's a good thing. Yeah. Well, and I've heard anecdotally that some people have had like the metal cases with the magnets, and those have become magnetized. So that will cause some issues regardless of what you're doing. Let's move on to the next one that GSM times 2 actually brought up, which is, what do you think about waypoint averaging? And this is actually the next thing I was going to talk about.
No.
Which is why he distracted me so much. My favorite thing to do is average across multiple devices, and preferably across multiple days and times of day, all of those readings, which granted takes a lot more work than most cache owners are probably willing to do. But it's a good idea, a good practice. And one of the things that you should be doing is going back and checking on that location multiple times, just to make sure that everything is good and that nothing is changing. Or, think of something that's like near a beach. You might discover that that's underwater at certain times of the day. So, I'm not saying it's a good idea to hide things on the beach, because usually it's not. But just as an example, make sure that you do check some of those conditions, and make sure it's not like a hangout for teens after school or something. But
yeah, I would love to tell people, just camp there for a day or two to see what kind of traffic comes by, but that's really not practical.
Not at all. And you certainly want to check it like weekdays and weekends if you're really getting serious about that. But the core of what I'm trying to get at is try to do more than one device and do it multiple times at multiple times of the day. Redoing it time after time. Like a lot of people love putting their phones down on ground zero and doing the average or not the phones, but the GPSs and doing the average there. That gets me some of the worst coordinates ever. Because we were just talking about that drift problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's when my Coords get really messed up. So I've stopped doing that entirely. So what I do is I kind of walk up, make sure the accuracy is good, and mark the waypoint on each of the devices, and I walk away. I'll usually try it 2, maybe 3 more times, so I get a variety. I'll take a look at those readings and usually throw out the ones that are really far off the others and then average what I have left.
Hey, that sounds like a good idea.
Coon and Bud. Did you see his comment? The one that's sitting in front of you?
Before I could see it on sat view, ground zero, I did average coordinates. Yeah.
I know a lot of people who do this now, and quite frankly, I do it a lot myself, especially when I can't go out and do a whole bunch of reads. Always check the satellite view on whatever service is best in your area. Most of the time, that's going to be Google Maps, but I've heard several areas have issues where you can be 50 or 100 feet off. So, what you're looking for to kind of confirm that are trees or signposts that will cast those nice shadows so that you can see right where the base is.
Right.
And if that is off significantly, then you probably don't want to be using that service for it.
Right.
Apple Maps used to be terrible for this. Yeah, if it was hide in a tree, it would show me the picnic table 100 feet away.
Now, when you say averaging coordinates by walking there, walking back, I also throw in what I consider ground zero from Google Maps into that mix.
All right. On a boat says that he's heard coordinates are a relative anyway. Who needs them? 50 feet is close enough. I think maybe we'll leave Ian to his opinion.
According to my GPS, that's true.
Well, and this is one of the catches that we always run into with geocaching is at best, GPS is currently 10 meters or 30 feet. So if you're within about 60 feet, you're within the error rate because you've got 30 feet that yours could be off and you have the 30 feet that the hider's GPS could be off. So especially in those funky radio reception areas, kind of like the color of Chris's skin right now.
I don't know what just happened here.
Don't count on don't count on the accuracy being all that good.
Instatan.
Wow. Do not average the Chris.
Wait there. Somehow my white balance just got thrown off.
Oh, wow. And all of our audio listeners are going to have missed that whole thing.
Yep. What just happened? I can't tell you.
Anyway, so yeah, kind of the moral of the story is don't complain if you're, 50 feet off. Don't complain, especially if you're like 30 feet off. That's unfortunately still par for the territory. Granted, most of the time when I go out now, I'm not more than about 10 or 15 feet off. We've just kind of gotten to that.
You'll have to go out with me and my smartphone.
Yeah. Jim Stark says, I will do the GPSR coordinate averaging function about 4 to 7 minutes long. And while it's averaging, I will slowly turn myself and also orient the GPSR in different directions during the entire process. So, if it works for you, great. I'm not saying that always that averaging function is going to screw up the chords, because I used to do that on the 60 CSX all the time. Never had a problem with it. But the newer GPSRs are the ones that gave me problems, to the point that I haven't really tried it on the latest generations that I have, because it caused so many problems that it's just, no, not going to do it. And Coon and Bud says he changed the location of a hide to a sign that was removed and placed on a new sign. So I'm assuming that he was talking about on the satellite. The sign that he had pinned it on had been the wrong one.
Yeah, that's true. You do kind of want to look at the date of when the satellite went overhead, because things change. The picnic
Yeah. Well, and a lot of services won't give you that. On a Boat says that he sets his device down on a rock or log while he's putting the cache in place and hiding it. Let the receiver settle in, then grab the reading, walk away, walk back to my waypoint, and see. And you know what? I think he's copying me.
Boat, never a good idea.
Yeah. Never follow the Daryl. Team Legend 4 will be sure to tell you that. Don't follow the Daryl.
Away from the Daryl. Put the Daryl down and walk away.
Oh, yes. Never pick up the Daryl. You'll hurt yourself. Anyway. So yeah, we've talked about the waypoint averaging, which is one of my favorites. I don't do it in unit. I always do it off to the side, because that way it's easier to work with multiple devices. And when I go and hide a cache, I at least try to have two, my GPSR and my phone.
Mm-hmm.
But at the very least, you should be able to have two phones, like your significant other or your caching buddy who's helping you place the cache. So there you go.
So what do you do, Daryl, if your significant other doesn't have a geocaching app on their phone?
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things that a lot of cachers I know have done, if they only have like the official app, is screenshots of the Compass app on their phone. So
say at least write it down, but yeah, screenshots may be more accurate.
Yeah, well, and especially on some of these phones, you want to just get the screenshots, because you don't necessarily have the clarity to write it down at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these just are not very readable. But screenshots, you can always take them. You've got your time and date stamp on there as well, and that way you can get a good location when you go back and punch them in. GSM times 2 is getting a new significant other. That's his answer.
Okay. Wow.
That could be expensive.
Yeah. GSM times 2, I'm going to help you out and not show that to my significant other. Otherwise, you're in trouble. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's see. We've talked about that, and then there was one other thing I wanted to talk about, and for whatever reason, that's escaped me now.
Well,
did you have anything else?
I wanted to mention with the smartphone is sometimes it really helps to open the Compass app and go through and calibrate the compass, because it calibrates the GPS as well. So take that phone and rotate it 360 degrees horizontally and 360 degrees vertically, and see what happens. See if that helps to improve your accuracy.
And GSM times 2 says, okay, just get a second phone. It's less expensive.
Oh, much less expensive.
Much less. I remembered what the other thing is that I wanted to mention, and that is, if you're on something like a cell phone, we typically tell you leave the Wi-Fi on. But in the case of hiding, my experience has been you are generally, not always, but generally better off to turn off all of your radios and just use the GPS. So I put it into airline mode and do the Coords that way. And you're just that much less likely to get interference. And remember, things like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi both factor into the location on most phones. So Bluetooth beacons are awesome. They help you navigate around the malls. But if you happen to hit one when you're doing a cache, it could conceivably mess up those cords a little bit. And same thing with the Wi-Fi. So they'll generally help you out as a finder, but as a hider, I typically don't like leaving those radios on, because I will get, in many cases, different location information than the GPS has me by, like 30 or 40 feet sometimes.
Interesting. Daryl, I typically have Wi-Fi off these days.
Yeah, no, that's one of those things that we've talked about on several of those shows. Having the Wi-Fi off is going to save you battery, but it does in like urban and suburban areas improve your accuracy.
Maybe I should turn my Wi-Fi back on. You know what?
Especially if you're in the urban jungle, you want your Wi-Fi on. And I think that's likely to be true even if you're hiding a cache. But in most cases, if you're in that urban jungle, don't count on the location from your GPS anyway.
Right.
So a lot of the times, the satellite view is going to be your best friend. Always make sure that looks close. So some of the people that I've talked with have gone and looked at a satellite view, taken their Coords, and kind of placed the pin visually between the two. That way they got the happy median between the people who are smartphone caching with the map. So they say, oh, it's probably over here. And then the GPS guys, who are going to always be off, are going to have something close to where they need to be.
Well, that's your manual averaging right there.
Exactly. And it's not something I really would recommend, but I don't know a better way to get around that. Because it's really, really awful in downtown with top, like some big like skyscrapers, because you just don't get good Coords.
No. And everything you read says get a clear view of the sky.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean just a little piece of sky right above you. You're going to need a good arc of sky in order to get a decent read off of multiple GPS satellites.
GSM times 2 asks if low batteries matter.
No, not anymore.
Well, it does matter if it triggers your battery saver mode.
Right.
So if you have a battery saver mode that kicks in, then you're always less likely to get good Coords. So
grab a USB battery and keep it with you, so you can keep your phone running in, over 20% battery. Is that typically when battery saver kicks in?
I don't really know what they've gone to. I thought it was actually dependent on the phone model.
Yeah.
And I think like Apple was actually changing the battery saver depending on the health of the battery too. So if your battery wasn't in good health, it would push it up to like 25 or 30%, something like that. But if it was in good health, it was down at like 15 or 10 or whatever. Although I wouldn't be surprised if they're actually doing something intelligent like measuring your current load.
Oh, interesting. I never thought of that.
So if you're at high load, it's going to kick in at 20%. If you're at low, it's only going to kick in at 10. Something like that. GSM times 2 says he geocached in downtown San Francisco 10 years ago. I have to walk into the intersection just to get a signal and then just guessed how far the geocache was.
Yeah.
I've cached in San Francisco a few times. I've used the GPS for walking directions in San Francisco a few times and gotten lost because I was using the GPS,
For walking
just
direct.
blindly following it, and it lost signal in the urban canyon, and
Yeah.
ended up walking like an extra, 3/4 of a mile or whatever it was, walking around blocks trying to reorient myself, because when you're in that urban jungle, it's kind of hard to tell which street you're on.
Yeah. So tall buildings, tall trees, well, trees of any kind, ravines, canyons, which are just like tall buildings except natural, and hills or cliffs. Again, the natural equivalent of tall buildings.
And
all
caves, don't forget the caves.
well, that's there. You don't even have a view of the sky, let alone
No.
clear view.
Right, but you're not going to get a good signal in caves.
With us indoors, the caves are the natural indoor.
How about volcanoes?
They'll usually have a good clear view of the sky. Yeah, where
Okay.
the lava's shooting up.
Well, I was going to say, doesn't the ejectorate obscure the signal?
I'm sure it would. Yeah.
Yeah. So
There's got
I don't think you can do it there either.
Yeah, there's got to be some electrical
The static would probably throw you off a bit.
interference of an erupting volcano.
Yeah. So that's something else to be careful of.
So those in Hawaii, be careful.
Yeah. Tsunamis.
It doesn't matter. I mean, the landmarks you're looking for are going to be gone.
Probably true. All right. Getting silly now. Sorry. Maybe we should wrap it up. What do you think?
Yeah. It made me think, because, the signals are actually coming from the satellites in the upper atmosphere. So any disturbance to the ionosphere, the stratosphere is going to do that. I'm thinking electrical storms that would tend to throw things off.
Yeah, just more things to cause problems that people don't really need to worry about most of the time. But, now that we shared it with you, you'll know if you ever do get caught in a volcano.
Okay.
Your GPS is useless. So is the cell phone, I'm sure.
Yeah.
If nothing else, no matter who you call, they're not going to come and get you.
I wonder if your satellite locator will help you at that point.
No. They'll go, oh, sorry, we lost another 2 souls.
We'll refund this month's.
All right. So thanks for checking out this show. If you do have any feedback from this show that we can share, let us know. Send it to geogearheads@cashmaniacs.com, because you know what? We've got a randomized show coming up in a few weeks. But next week, we're going to talk more about the effects of the pandemic on our geocaching. So, yeah, I'm sure yours has been affected as well. Let us know what the impact has been by emailing geogearheads@cashmaniacs.com, and we'll probably share a bunch of those on the show. But we've got On a Boat Again, who's unfortunately had to deal with canceling Midwest Geo Bash, but is still going to show up along with some of the rest of us.
Daryl, what geocaching?
What geocaching?
Yeah, the pandemic has affected my geocaching. I say, what geocaching?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I actually have been getting out a little bit, which is impressive. But I don't think I would have been doing that if it weren't for the channel where I go, YouTube channel where I go and film geocaching and then, share that. Otherwise, it would, especially right now, it would be so much safer to sit indoors.
Mm-hmm.
Much cooler that way. And then Merlin 1392, who's had to cancel pretty much his whole summer extravaganza. But he does have some interesting stats on the Geo Tour, the Michigan Geo Tour that he'll share. Right. Yeah. Which has been getting more activity, as I understand.
Good.
So that's next week. The week after that, we're going to be doing another show on Where I Go. Then finally, well, not our last show, but finally, I'm going to tease that we're going to do that randomized show. So 3 weeks away, and we've got another randomized show. So keep all of that feedback coming to Cashmaniacs at geogearheads@cashmaniacs.com.
Thanks for messing up. It makes me sound better.
Yeah, I do it just for you,
Daryl's human after all. Hey, folks, make sure to check the Cashmaniacs webpage at cashmaniacs.com for more on the Geo Gearheads, including show notes for this and all our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads@cashmaniacs.com or through the many channels of social media. Your support helps keep the Cashmaniac shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cashmaniac shows. Geo Gearheads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. The show's copyright 2020 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with a Cashmaniac.